Hello everyone and welcome back to the gaming tier in Patreon. Today we have some exciting news from kind of all across the board. Again, just a couple of splatterings of things that I've come across this week in gaming that's not necessarily restricted to video gaming, as you will find out with the first article that we are going to talk about, and then other really interesting news as this video progresses. So, with that, we are going to start with the first thing, and our first topic is Vampire the Masquerade outdoes Gloomhaven with giant new campaign in a box. Now, this is exciting because the tabletop game Gloomhaven has actually been extremely successful for those that play this style of game, and it is something that is unique, that doesn't require a game master to play. And the developers of this new Vampire the Masquerade tabletop game have decided to do something similar. As the Polygon article you are looking at reads, Vampire the Masquerade Chapters is a campaign in a box in the style of Gloomhaven, a role-playing game that doesn't require a game master to run. As with many other high-concept tabletop games right now, Chapters developers say it's simply too big and too expensive to ever come to retail. We sat down with Flyers Games to learn more and to tease apart the economic realities that are changing the landscape for high-concept board games. So in it, the creators of Chapters are two French designers who live in Montreal, so they are Canadian. And they did create a couple of board games prior to this Vampire the Masquerade game, and it was funded through Kickstarter, which many creators go to in order to be able to produce the content in the games that they are looking to put out into the world. They pitched the idea to Paradox Interactive back in 2015 because Paradox had bought the rights to the Vampire the Masquerade franchise, as far as this tells us. Most of the time when it comes to board games, they are able to be purchased through a retail store or an online site such as Amazon or anything similar in vein. Sometimes you can buy these kinds of board games directly through the store, but through their website. And that means there are additional costs like shipping. And often, board games are created in other countries, and then they are shipped. It's a question of margins, so you have to consider the cost of that board game and if that factors into the total cost of everything, including the shipping, like the manufacturing of the game, and still be able to come home with a profit. So often board games have seen a bit of an increase in pricing. And especially considering the pandemic that we have right now, it can be challenging to get a board game unless you're going through online retail stores. And right now, Vampire the Masquerade Chapters is starting at $180 Canadian, which is about $140 American. A lot of board games apparently are going this route to go through a retail store because many retail stores are closed right now. So it can be difficult to figure that out and still be profitable, especially in current times. So this is a full game. I'm actually extremely excited to see what comes out of this game because I absolutely love Vampire the Masquerade, and I think this would be a fantastic addition. And I can tell that it does seem to follow the rule set of the tabletop Vampire the Masquerade version. So it's designed for 1 to 4 players, and everyone takes on roles of vampires, secretly trying to live their lives in modern day Montreal, which is very exciting that Canada gets to be shown across the world in, board game format, and I couldn't be happier with the idea of this. I don't know that I would shell out $180 for a board game, but it's a very interesting idea, and I'm very curious to see what happens with this particular game, and see what happens in the future, because down the road they might ship to retailers to be able to, make a profit and get some more players and whatnot. Otherwise, it might be difficult to get the game at this time. So I will leave a link to this particular article, but I am extremely excited to see what happens with this. The next thing I want to talk about is a game that I used to play a fair amount of, and then I stopped playing. My ex-boyfriend was one of the few people that actually played the game that I knew at the time, who was helping me learn the mechanics of the game, and we would play together very frequently. And when the relationship went by the wayside, the playing of this game also went by the wayside. And it has had some significant changes over the last couple of years, but they are making more changes. So now we are going to talk about Warframe. So, this is a preview of Warframe's biggest update in 8 years. One of the very first things that bugged me about Warframe was the railjack missions, and the idea behind them was really interesting to me. Unfortunately, very few people actually enjoyed doing the missions that required the railjack. They were often expensive, and I don't really remember doing much with them. Not necessary to have these railjacks in the game. So, this is a PC Games Network article where they discuss the upcoming changes. Digital Extremes Live Ops and Community Director Rebecca Ford takes us through the marked changes on the way to Warframe this month in the video, which you can watch below or read in blog form on the Warframe website. Since the bulk of the update involves Railjack gameplay, players who have not yet built their Railjack will be pleased to learn that it's going to be a lot easier to get into one of Warframe's big capital ships from now on. The cost in both materials and time to build the Railjack components is being reduced, but if you prefer to skip the grind altogether, Railjack ships will also be available to buy on the marketplace for Platinum. For those of you that don't know, Platinum is the real-world currency that Warframe uses. Most of the time, if you are a veteran player, you can get various Warframes that serve different functions and are useful in different missions. And as a person that generally doesn't invest real money into games other than buying maybe a season pass or something, any object, skin, item that you can acquire through a real world transaction is not necessarily something that I personally will invest in, but the fact that you will be able to buy Railjack ships for cheaper, and if you wish to grind it out, it'll take less time, that is extremely appealing. I like all of the things that they're doing, and I definitely like that they're making Railjacks more accessible for players in this new huge update of the game. I will also include down below the link to the YouTube video to see some of the changes that are happening. Most of it relates to the Railjack experience in the game, but for those of you that are Warframe fans, you might find this interesting. So the next really big piece of news comes as no surprise to anybody following the gaming scene for a while. And I know that I spoke briefly about this company in the last gaming news video, and that is Bethesda has officially joined up with Xbox. ZeniMax is the parent company of Bethesda, and that means they have not only Bethesda Game Studios, ID Software, ZeniMax Online Studios, Arcane, Machine Games, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog, and Roundhouse Studios. And this certainly fortifies the Xbox community in trying to make sure that gamers get the types of content that they are looking for, and they're really trying to be accessible to all gamers, no matter if you are a console or a PC gamer. So, in this article, this is directly off of the Xbox website. This next step in building an industry-leading first-party studios team, a commitment we have to our Xbox community. With the addition of Bethesda creative teams, gamers should know that Xbox consoles, PC, and Game Pass will be the best place to experience new Bethesda games, including new titles in the future that will be exclusive to Xbox and PC players. As we shared previously, it's vitally important that Bethesda continues making games the way it always has. We look forward to empowering Bethesda's creative teams to reach even more players around the world, helping make future Bethesda titles the biggest and most popular games in their history. Xbox and Bethesda have long shared a common vision for the future of gaming. Both as fans and as creators, Bethesda understands the potential of Xbox Games Pass. Now, the cool thing is, Xbox Games Pass has given players access to a whole host of titles that they weren't necessarily able to get. So think about people like me who are PC gamers, and I have a PlayStation 3, so I'm well behind the times when it comes to console. And the most recent console I have access to is the Nintendo Switch. And when you consider I do have a vast library between Steam and Epic Games and GOG and Origin and all of these, there are a bunch of titles like my beloved Gran Turismo that I cannot access without having a specific console. And Xbox is trying to bridge that gap and allow Xbox players to team up with PC gamers in all of the games that they enjoy, instead of having to hope that developers have some kind of cross-saving feature or cross-play feature that is heavily sought after in the gaming industry. While I personally am not a large fan of most Bethesda titles, the partnership between Xbox and Bethesda is great for the consumer, because they'll have more access to games that they know and love without needing to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a new console or, something of the sort just to get that experience. So it is a huge deal, and I am very excited to see what happens moving forward, how Xbox keeps sort of pushing that envelope. Because there was a time that Sony was dominating, and right now they have to pick up their feet and figure something out. Otherwise, Xbox is going to kick them to the curb, and I don't want that to happen. But if they don't figure out how to play nice with others, they might just end up getting screwed over in the end. So we'll see what happens. So the final thing I'd like to talk about is Twitch. And I'm really only going to speak to this briefly, extremely briefly, because sometimes Twitter and keyboard warriors like to state things without really sort of thinking them through, or, without realizing that they've been around for a while. So here is a tweet. We're doing our best to protect our streamers from trolls, says Twitch. Also Twitch, here you go trolls, here's another zero-cost way to troll the streamer. And yes, I confirmed it works. It's not just a debate option. I got a refund. 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards. Now, the reason I wanted to sort of bring up this tweet is not because the author of this tweet has done anything particularly bad, but while Twitch has made many, many questionable decisions over the years, and has certainly misstepped heavily in the last, say, 2 years, let's be generous and just say 2 years, this is something that has existed for a little while, from my understanding. The idea that people will subscribe just to have their awkward or bad or offensive username stated out loud to potentially embarrass the streamer. This isn't the only way to do it. If a streamer uses closed captioning, for example, it's very easy for the streamer to say, oh, hey, thanks for the follow, da-da-da, insert name here, and that will show up in your closed captioning. So not only do you hear the offensive, username, but you'll also see it if you have the closed captioning active. There are other ways that trolls would get to streamers, and that would be to create countless, dummy accounts on Twitch, which they can do for free, and follow a person's channel, and then probably promptly unfollow, or they get banned, and so they have to make another one. Sometimes these people will say something offensive, and they will get banned, and then they will submit an unban request to the mods. Not only do the mods get the opportunity to see that, but so does the streamer if they decide to look at that option. And so when it comes to trolling, I honestly don't believe that Twitch put that in deliberately to give trolls another method of, showing themselves. Because in the end, they don't really get anything except for maybe their 2 seconds of fame, if you will. But in the grand scheme of things, those particular trolls, you're costing yourself money, but then you're allowed to request a refund. And if they click the option of, I just wanted to get a shout out, well, they're very egotistical, and to hell with them. I don't really see this as being a huge problem. I don't see this as a giant misstep by Twitch. I think it's a little bit hilarious that they would include that as a reason for canceling a subscription to a streamer, but I really don't see this being a big deal. Issues regarding DMCA is more of a big deal. Protecting your streamers by giving them tools like AutoMod, unban requests in the event that you accidentally ban someone that wasn't meant to be banned. Listening to people about what sorts of ads they want represented on their stream, giving options for those. Those are greater issues, I feel, for the ecosystem of Twitch, but there are many other ways to troll a streamer that do not require them to subscribe and then unsubscribe. And as far as I know, the pop-up asking for the reason you're canceling your subscription has existed for a while. Maybe not that specific option, but it has certainly been there, so I don't see why Twitter decided to jump on the bandwagon. Again, this has nothing to do with the specific person that did this tweet. There were several other people on Twitter that mentioned this and brought it back up. I don't really see it as that huge of an issue, but just know that when it comes to money that you make through Twitch, like any good business, don't go spending all of your money right away. You have to consider bounce backs, if there's not enough money in a PayPal account or something like that. Or they decided, I don't have the money this month, so I'm clawing back all of the subscriptions to channels that I have in order to buy food tomorrow, or whatever it happens to be. That is much more important to consider when you're looking at your payouts as a streamer. So I don't really see this as a huge deal. But that's just me. I'm just submitting my opinion. You decide what you think about all of these issues. If you have any thoughts or comments or things you would like for me to cover in future videos, please let me know in Discord, on Twitter, on Twitch. If you hop into my channel at any point in time, I am in all of these places. I would love to reach out to some of you and get more feedback for what I should include in some of these videos. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. You have a good day.